So we've talked about how the amount of the alcohol in proportion to the dye is going to make a difference. If there's a lot of alcohol, it's really going to move. If there's just a little bit of alcohol, it's not going to move as much. So how do you know how much alcohol is in a bottle? Well, the only way to know, I know, is to put down a drop. So there's a drop of aqua. My table's a little bit slanted, so you'll see how much it moves. What's interesting here is you can actually see the edge of the alcohol, and then the dye is spreading out in rings. So the next one I'm going to put down is Sailboat. Sailboat is moving also, but not as much. There's even a little bit of edge here where it's beating up. This guy's beating up as well. And then let's put a drop of Sailboat. This is a drop of indigo. Let me put a little bit more on the Sailboat. So indigo is spreading. It's very concentrated with dye. It's not going as far as the aqua and not making those rings. Let's add a little bit more. I didn't give Sailboat a chance. Okay, there's Sailboat. When indigo's done, it just stops. Sailboat is moving. Aqua, you can see all the alcohol. So that should translate into how much they move. Let's use the same colors and just pour them on a slant and see how they move. So here's aqua. It is going down because of gravity. And then it's spreading wide. Here's Sailboat. Add a little bit more. So gravity's pulling it, but it's not running nearly as much as the aqua. And then we have indigo. So indigo goes down, and it spreads out, and it stops. It's not really very much different than Sailboat is. Aqua is the one that has a lot of alcohol in the bottle. So let's look at some other manufacturers. So we looked at the Ranger products. Many of you are familiar with Piñata. This is Piñata Baja Blue. We'll put a dot down. So people often say that the piñatas are richer. It's really that the dye is very concentrated. The color is very similar to Sailboat. So the color of the dye is really close to the same. But when Ranger manufactures it, they put more alcohol in the body in proportion to the dye than the Piñata does. So here is another brand. This is a Copic refill. This is B29 Ultramarine. Comes in a container like this. This is a lot closer in color to the indigo, but it has more alcohol in it. And then this is Zig Curacolor refills. This is called Peacock Blue. So this guy's very concentrated in color. Now, if we want any of these to move more, we can add alcohol. Okay, so I have a little brush with some alcohol on it. If we add a drop of alcohol here, then it starts moving again. So now what we've done is we've got concentrated dye, but we add alcohol to it, and now we can move some of the dye around. Do the same thing with the Sailboat. Add a little alcohol. You can move it around. But one thing that you can see is there's a lot more dye in the Piñata than in the Ranger. So once you add alcohol, you can move the dye farther around than you can with the Ranger. Let's look at the Copic. Copic also very concentrated. And last but not least, the Zig. The color's different, but the dye is concentrated. So by adding alcohol, we can start painting again. Let's go back to our 3 Rangers and add alcohol there. So here's the aqua. We add alcohol. There's not very much dye because the dye got dispersed. Let's go to the Sailboat, add some alcohol to it. It looks just like it did on the other sheet. But you can move the dye a certain distance by adding alcohol. And then the indigo is very concentrated right out of the bottle. So you have a lot more dye to work with. So in summary, if there's lots of alcohol in the bottle, it'll move, it'll rock, it'll spread. But the dye will be pretty much used up. There's not much more to pull out. If there's less alcohol in the bottle, it doesn't spread as much, but there's some dye to use. If it's very concentrated and lots of dye in the bottle, it'll only move a short distance, but you've got lots of dye to play with.